Good day. My name is Dimpho Selepe. I am an M2 student. I am interested in how society positions the female body as an extension of the public realm that can be occupied and transgressed without her permission. I work to remember the dismembered and captive nature of women's bodies. My interest from 2020 moved from the focus on the trained female body in the domestic realm to a woman's sexualized body in the public realm in 2021, moving up in scale and spatial condition from private to public. This year, I investigate the societal myth of women's sexuality and bodies not belonging to themselves, existing as a tool of service to society for the purpose of procreation, male pleasure, and consumption. The project's site of interest is the strip club, particularly Maverick's Gentlemen's Club, found in Cape Town City Centre. The project explores how women's professional limits are transgressed even in the context of sexuality as currency. The project proposes stripping as a practice that, according to Australian scholar Lauren Rosewarne, upholds patriarchy in its most essential form, as women are consumed as commodities and objectified in their rawest sense, which complicates the scope of negotiations that must be made regarding bodily transgression. I recognize that for some women, stripping is done by choice, but the project is interested in the ways to mitigate the physical, psychological, and sociological harm of the industry by investigating the ways it programs gendered bodies' relationships to one another. In some of my earlier works, I started to understand the thresholds of the strip club as heterotopia, where I investigated the spatial conditions, particularly through the lens of an auction house, where women are on display for male consumption and as commodities. I then investigated a strip club's binary conditions, paralleling the strip club with a fashion show for its performative and display characteristics. Women are objects or mannequins, where, like stripping, clothing acts as their second skin or the body's facade. I then paralleled this to a church setting, overlapping heterotopic characteristics of embodying different sets of moral and performance standards that don't necessarily apply outside of the church. I also made overlaps between stripping and the transactional relationships, also known as the blesser-blessee culture found in South Africa. That shares performance and attire characteristics. I visited Maverick's Gentlemen's Club on the trip to Cape Town, where I investigated the conditions that sustain its lack of transparency, which enables it as an industry to bypass significant forms of regulation. For example, the name of the place is absent in the bill of on an account statement. Like, for example, you don't see Maverick Strip Club or Maverick's Gentlemen's Club, rather. You see Mel Trade 180 Cape Town on your account statement when you make transactions within the club. So, and also one is not able to take photographs, so it becomes difficult to have evidence of what is going on within the club. These are some of the ways regulations are able to be bypassed. Because Mavericks does not permit the taking of photographs or videos, through memory drawings, I drew my recollective memories with my eyes closed for 2 to 5 minutes without lifting the pen. This practice is used to recollect visual memory in its clearest and uninterrupted form. In the installation titled "He Hustles My Body, I Hustle His Pocket," builds a projection of Maverick's Club where nylon stockings act as a placeholder for the body and skin. It tests gendered entitlement to the female body. Bare beige represents white women, which is the lighter skin toned, lighter toned stockings, whereas the beach bronze, Mexican silver, and black male colored stockings represent women of color. Nylon is used for similar reasons. American visual artist Sengi Ngudi uses nylon in her works of art. The only time women wear stockings is to literally put their bodies in tension. This tension is about social performance. Women wear stockings in a professional setting in order to look presentable as well as professional. Because of nylon's unique relationship to performance, in the case of my project, the performance of stripping, I thought it fitting for this installation, particular installation, and later installations. Parallel to the nylon installation, I continue with one of my mediums from 2020, which is embroidery, which started historically as a language of a conquering victor, where the wives of the conquerors would embroider what their husbands brought back home from colonized countries. They would hang these up on their walls as trophies. So I use this medium of conquering to express women's subjugation in strip clubs. The embroidery is not as successfully applied as the nylon installation. Embroidery was more limiting, whereas the nylon opened up more possibilities for my project. I transitioned from the 1-in-1 installation to a 1-in-500 tactile model, which was productive as moving scales created a new type of tactility. It built a more precise relationship between the model and the bodies acting upon the model. The 1-in-1 model brought about more restrictions, whereas because there was like a tentativeness from my male audience to touch this installation. The 1-in-500 model is an abstraction of the body, but it doesn't explicitly represent women with open legs, but it still gives the material capacity of nylon, its tensile properties, sensitivity to touch, as well as transparency. So it builds a better clarity in understanding the relationship between the model and the body that acts upon the model. I highlight 3 main forms or types of transgression present in strip clubs through strippers' testimonials, namely the non-consensual pulling, grabbing, choking of sensual dancers, the non-consensual touching of genitals of the sensual dancers, as well as the rape of sensual dancers. So particularly in Leah's story, for example, I highlight what spatial conditions contribute to her sense of feeling that she cannot find, or she cannot yell. So in her testimonial, Leah says that she had a client who wanted a lap dance in one of the booths, and she took him upstairs, and it was supposed to be just a lap dance, and his hands just started moving lower and lower towards her genitals. So she expresses that she felt molested in that situation, and if she had yelled, no one would have heard her. So identify some of the spatial conditions present within these lap dance booths, or these private booths rather, that contribute to this sense of isolation. So it's things like, furniture which absorbs sound, wall cushioning, slabs, draping on ceilings, walls, closed doors, which contribute to the acoustic properties within the room that make her feel like, okay, I'm not going to be heard if I start to scream for help, or if she starts to be transgressed. As well as distance, for example, where you'd find that private booths are on the topmost floor, or the highest floor rather, of a club, and these are isolated rooms where in contrast to the main club where it's full of people, and you generally find security guards in these main clubs. So there's like a distance between the main club as well as these private booths that make her feel like she won't be heard if she were to scream. The project proposes an extension to Mavericks Club's programs as a defense against the female body as publicly transgressible, by producing a space where strippers are able to step into a second skin that operates in sync with the body's vocabulary and form, allowing her to create distance from a clientele as they are free to violate that second skin. from afar, the sensual dancer can influence and control a man's experience while staying in a cocoon of safety. For the man, his range of pleasure is extended. So these are some of the conceptual sketches that I produced to conceptualize the second skin. So, and this is like a conceptual atmosphere drawing of how this second skin would be experienced. So the second skin exists in the atrium of Mavericks, each segment stretching along 5 stories of the club. So in the atrium of Mavericks, along 5 stories of the club, it is made up of a two-way stretched nylon lycra. Lycra is a highly elastic synthetic fabric and is highly resistant to heat. The nylon lycra is stretched on an aluminum track profile that is on the masonry, and the central track profile is suspended on 3mm steel cables. The central dancers are the only ones capable of occupying the cocoon from designated rooms right outside the second skin. The second skin has various levels of transparency. The ground being the most transparent, and the top floor having more visual opacity. The clientele have various levels of access to the central dancers. The lower you are, the more visual access you have, and the higher you go, the more physical access you may be granted by the central dancers. Thank you very much.